By request of the meeting organizer, this meeting is being recorded.
So for anyone who's unable to attend, they'll be able to access a recording via the NYSCA website. So this is a facilities program webinar at NYSCA. I'm going to be presenting a bunch of information about our program and our categories, and then I'm going to open it up to you, the participants, for questions via the chat feature of this webinar. You will be able to write a question to me, and it won't be seen to the group. I'm going to take them all at the end. I'll be able to see your name, but I won't be announcing it to everyone, so ask me whatever you want to. Some other housekeeping items are that the deadline for this year's application will be announced soon. Just keep an eye on your email inboxes. It will be coming to you hopefully in the next week or so. So we sometimes call facilities the hidden program at NYSCA because, unlike others, it's not meant to be ongoing yearly support. So you may not know it exists until you need it. This program was established in 1987 when legislation was passed in recognition of the fact that arts and cultural organizations needed funding for renovations, for expansions, and restoration of their facilities. Again, for anyone who's just joining us, this is the facilities seminar at NYSCA. We are going to be discussing the fiscal year 17 grant opportunity. So if you're interested in applying for a project that is going to take place between January and December, excuse me just a moment, having a little temporary difficulty with the screen sharing feature. Okay, oops. Bear with me here as I fight through this. Okay, now we're back where we want to be. So as I was saying, this is for everyone who's interested in applying to facilities for fiscal year 17, a project from January to December of that year. So because the program was established through legislation, the guidelines here are very strict. So let's start with some basics of who is eligible. And scoot over here. So the first thing is you have to have received 3 consecutive years of NYSCA support. This doesn't include sponsored projects, regional economic development, grants, or decentralization grants. You must own your own facility or have a long-term lease with at least 6 years to go on the term, or a renewal option not requiring landlord approval. If you apply for any exterior rehabilitation projects such as roof replacement or facade restoration, you need to own your building. The applicant can't have received facilities funding for more than 3 years in the last 5 years period, and you need to have completed any previously supported facilities projects before applying for a new one, and that includes submitting your final report. Also, the projects for which funding is sought cannot be supported by any other New York State program or entity or agency. So if an application comes in and the project budget shows New York State support, it will be deemed ineligible. The good news is that this program is exempt from the 2 request limit, so you may be applying for facility for a theater and arts education, and you can still come into facilities. There are a couple examples of organizations that are not eligible. Oops, lost my place here. Bear with me a second again. And these are religious institutions or arts organizations requesting funds for a facility they share from a religious institution. Also, public school districts, public universities or state agencies, or arts organizations leasing their facilities from such an entity. So for all projects, we have facility-wide priorities that we want to see the applicant address. at least one of them. And there's a question in each application where you will have to describe how you address one of these priorities. They are projects that improve, expand, or rehabilitate existing buildings to provide access for all, projects that address known health and safety deficiencies, projects that address issues of building stabilization, organizations that further cultural development in rural or minority communities, projects that reduce an organization's operating costs, or projects that demonstrate environmental stewardship and or sustainable building practices. We also prioritize funding to buildings which currently house NYSCA-funded programs. So if, say for example, you work for a Y and you have an arts program and you have a gym and a pool, and you apply for facilities funding for the gym and the pool, that's obviously going to be a lower priority because that's not where your NYSCA-funded arts programs are taking place. I am going to just take a quick moment to answer someone's chat who's saying they don't hear anything on the phone, so obviously that person hasn't called in. So I'm just going to say, yes, call in, please. Okay, so back to our guidelines. We have 3 categories in this program. In design studies, we support the applicant working with an architect to design a renovation or expansion. Oops, the screen sharing is having an issue again. Okay, the second category is capital projects. If you've completed the design of a renovation or expansion and you're ready to build, support's available for construction costs. And then in capital equipment, the purchase of equipment necessary for production and or presentation of an art form can be supported. For all of our categories, the maximum grant is $49,500 and the minimum grant is $5,000, and we require a 1-to-1 match. In-kind support is acceptable as part of the match in this program. And we do fund the full eligible grant. So let's go take a look at some of the categories a little more closely. We'll start with design studies. So this is where we provide funding to engage the services of a New York State licensed architect for the completion of concept design, schematic design, or design development for a planned capital project. Requests for an architect design master plan for a cultural facility are also accepted. NYSCA encourages design work that generates creative solutions to the problem of adapting existing structures to new or expanded cultural uses. Support's not available for the design of entirely new facilities. So if you have that vacant lot sitting around and you want to turn it into the next Frank Gehry masterpiece, unfortunately, this is not your opportunity. Now, projects in this category cannot include bid negotiation, construction administration, purchase of real estate, or capital construction costs, out-of-state travel, salaries or overhead of public agencies, or student projects. For each of the categories, whatever you think you're going to apply in, I really encourage you to look at the questions and the support materials, and those will be a good litmus test. If you think you can answer those questions and provide those materials, then that's a good indication that you're ready. So we organize the question in our 3 categories, which is what we use to rate your proposal in the panel meeting. Since most of you are probably already NYSCA applicants, you probably already know that in the other programs we use 3 criteria as well, and those are artistic and programmatic quality, managerial and fiscal competence, and then service to the public. So in facilities, we don't use artistic and programmatic quality because the assumption is that you've already received NYSCA support, so your artistic quality is already good. What we're looking at here are the design and technical elements of your project. So for the design studies category, we're going to look at the what the architect may have done so far, the appropriateness of that consultant, the appropriateness of this project for your organization. Then in the managerial and fiscal area, we're going to look at whether you have the capacity to manage this project and going forward may have the capacity to actually carry out a capital project. And in service to the public, we want to see that this project will serve your audience and your community. So again, it's really important to look at the support materials because this program is guided by legislation, and so any missing support material will disqualify you from moving forward in the process. So in design studies, we want to see your architect's resume, we want to see their scope of work, and 20 images that are going to basically tell the story of your project. So images of your building, any preliminary work that your architect may have done, and images from other work that your consultant's done to show, what they can do, and that, again, they've maybe worked on some similar projects or they're a good match for you. So then over to capital projects, which is our next category. So in this area, support's available for renovation, expansion, or restoration projects for eligible buildings, and these projects must be sufficiently developed to be able to secure all required permits and approvals. That's kind of another good litmus test for you. Construction must be able to occur during the NYSCA contract period in order to be eligible, and applicants requesting support for installation of elevators, wheelchair lifts, boilers, and HVAC systems can apply in this category. Again, we can't support construction of entirely new facilities. So as required by legislation, all applicants in this category are reviewed by New York State licensed engineers. That's actually the first step. So anyone who applies here is going to get a review by an engineer, and the engineers panel will either pass or fail the proposal before it moves on or not to the full panel. They also give comments on any concerns that they have, so the fuller panel can consider those as well. So we'll just scan the questions. We're looking at the same three criteria in this category. The design and technical review will look for, that you're setting up everything logistically as you should, that you have the appropriate consultants, permits, and things like that. The managerial and fiscal area is going to consider whether you can manage this project and fundraise for it and then maintain it once it's done. And the service questions will consider how this is going to serve your audience and your community. And then the support materials, again, these are really critical. The panel just can't evaluate a proposal without everything here. So we need to see documents sufficiently detailed for bidding, permitting, and construction. If you don't think that you need these documents to proceed with the project that you want to apply for here, I would give me a call. We need at least 2 comparable contractors' written estimates. If these estimates are wildly different, please take the opportunity in the narrative to explain why they're different and why you've chosen the one that you're going for, so we can understand your rationale. There's a contractor's estimate summary form, useful life documentation, and then images that are going to, again, tell the story of your project with, so we can see the facility, any design work, and maybe some images from the consultant's previous work. Then our third category is capital equipment. So here, support may be requested for the purchase of equipment that's essential to the production and or presentation of an art form, such as theatrical lighting or sound systems, gallery lighting, sprung flooring, infrared or FM listening systems, large type and braille printers, theater seats, projectors, and fire curtains. Museum collection storage systems are also eligible. Such professional equipment may be requested for programs focused on professional training or rehearsal, as well as arts education. So for example, sprung flooring might be requested for a rehearsal space for professional dancers or for dance education programs. Equipment is generally defined as any physical item that's not fixed in place and is depreciable, is widely available, and generally not made to order. Examples of ineligible equipment include non-depreciable AV equipment, office furniture, office shelving, stackable chairs, computers and software, distance learning equipment, food service equipment, and telephones. Now, we recognize that the latest technology may be needed to run with computers, so applicants can only include computers if they can demonstrate that the equipment is critical to the ability to produce an art form and isn't for daily office or administrative use. Musical instruments are not supported through this category. If you're interested in support for a purchase of one of those, you can look at the musical instrument revolving loan fund in the music category. So let's scan these questions again. They're going to be organized in the same 3 criteria. In the design and technical review, we're looking at the equipment itself and consultants you may have worked with. In the managerial and fiscal area, we want to see that you have the capacity to carry out the installation of this equipment, you can finance the project, and you can maintain it. And then in service, we want to see what it's going to do for your community and your audience. Support materials, please again review these in advance. We want to see equipment brochures or URL links, contractors' written estimates. We want to see the estimate summary form, useful life documentation, and 20 images that will tell the story. We want to see where in the facility this equipment is going to be. Okay. So a couple of strategies I want to touch on for all of the categories. Oftentimes applicants are coming to us when they're undertaking a larger renovation project. Now, because we can only fund up to $49,500, it sometimes makes sense to come into NYSCA for a smaller piece of a larger project. For example, if you're doing a large renovation, you may want to come into us just for your elevator. So if this is the approach that you're going to take, it makes sense to contextualize in your narrative what you're doing. Just describe the larger effort in 1 or 2 sentences, and then focus on that one piece that you're coming in for. Ultimately, it's your decision, but in the past it has been difficult sometimes when it's a longer list of things that are being, the support is requested for. Sometimes the panel has to wrestle with when they think one element is strong but another element on the list isn't. It just makes it a little bit more difficult. But again, the decision is yours. So I want to touch on our panel process a little bit. Like other programs at NYSCA, we have a peer review panel, and here I'm pulling up the list of panelists who served on our roster last year. We always have more people on the roster than we have in the room, and we can't tell you who was in the room for any given application review, but the names are public, so you can feel free to check them out on our website. And we always include architects and preservation architects, some administrators, arts administrators who are familiar with capital projects, and then some technical specialists like lighting designers. We invite people from all over the state, and we get a number of different artistic disciplines represented. Now, I wanted to note that this is a very competitive category because we do fund the full eligible amount. That means that every year there are a number of applicants who still fall in what's considered the good or fundable range that we just can't get to because of the limitations of our funding. Now, I wanted to go back to some more of the fine print to go over just a couple other details that you need to keep in mind if you're making a proposal. Bear with me as I get to the right place here. Here we go. Okay, so deferred maintenance. NYSCA is unlikely to fund maintenance projects and capital projects that have resulted from deferred maintenance, so this would include perhaps roof repair or servicing of HVAC equipment if it is a result of neglect. The Americans with Disabilities Act, we are particularly concerned with ensuring access to cultural events and services for all New Yorkers. So applicants whose facilities are not fully accessible to both audience members and artists with disabilities are urged to learn more about the ADA Act. Now, the Dormitory Authority has to review projects with proposed budgets of $1 million or greater. They may provide technical review and recommendations, and it typically takes 30 days. So if they determine that a project is technically flawed, they would forward that recommendation to us. So please be aware of that if your project is going to be, or if the project that you're coming to NYSCA would be more than $1 million. And then SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, has to review capital projects funded by us to ensure that the effects or impacts on eligible or listed properties are considered and avoided or mitigated during that project planning process. So if you go to our website and our guidelines, you'll see the link here to follow to request that review. Now finally, for projects that don't fit into anything that I have described so far, please be aware that we do have a technical support mechanism. It is administered through the Preservation League of New York State, and they have two programs. There's the Preserve New York program, where building condition reports are available, and then the technical assistance grant provides support for modest projects like building conditions assessments and structural analysis. So those might be the types of things that you need to do before you're ready to come in to us for design or construction. So I'm going to open it up for questions pretty soon, but just wanted to mention that again this year the application will be a twofold process where you will submit your registration, organization budget, and organizational profile here on the NYSCA website, and then the full application will be available here on Grants Gateway. We are going to be offering some opportunities for technical assistance with navigating this process, so look for announcements on those. I'm not going to focus on that today. You know, the objective here is really to get into the facilities guidelines, but please look out for that. So now let me see what some of the questions have been. Oh, looks like we have a lot. Okay. So let's see. All right, so someone's saying that they have been awarded a grant from the Dormitory Authority via a state elected official. Can they come into NYSCA for funding for additional funds for that project? No, you cannot. So that's the regulation about not using New York State funds from two different places in this category, unfortunately. Question, can we seek funding for a capital project that will begin construction in 2016? If the bulk of the work is going to happen in 2017, and you can demonstrate that in the budget, you know, parse out the part that's going to happen in 2017, then you are able to come in. That's a good question. The same would be true if your project extends past the grant period. So if it were to go into 2018, when you do your final report, you would just need to show what was accomplished and that, you know, all of the NYSCA grant was spent in 2017. The facilities program is actually the only program at NYSCA where you can request extensions, and that's because we know that these types of projects have a lot of moving pieces, and it's hard to, you know, nail them down to one 12-month period sometimes. So if you do get a grant and you find that it's going to take longer than you want it to, you can request a 3-month extension, and you can do this twice. So you would have to do it in writing, write to me. It has to get approved by our deputy director, but you can keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, someone said, can you please share the link to that common guideline overview? I need it to refer back. Everything that I have pulled up for you today is on our website. So if you go to our website, arts.ny.gov, program guidelines, then go to facilities, you will be able to find, I think, most of what you need. Okay, someone says, if we already have NYSCA grants in 2 other categories, are we ineligible? No, you're not. you may still apply in facilities because this program is exempt from the 2 request limit. Okay. Someone's asking, they're writing from a private college. Public universities are not allowed, but are private colleges allowed to apply? Private colleges are allowed to apply if they can make the case that they're supporting the facility where NYSCA-supported activities are offered. For example, if your college has a museum that's open to the public, then that facility would be eligible to apply. If you are interested in applying for the theater where you have, you know, classes and lectures as well as your performance season that's funded by NYSCA, it may be a lower priority because that is a mixed-use facility. Okay, another question about other funds from New York State. This person wants clarity on whether it's just for this proposed facility application, and can they be receiving other state funding for other facility projects? The answer is yes. Say you have, you know, 2 things that you're working on at once. You are replacing your roof, and then you're also, you know, designing your basement so that it can become your black box theater. If you are coming to NYSCA for the design, then, and it's not receiving state funds, then no problem. Okie doke. Can you share an example of issues of building stabilization? I'm not sure where that was from. If this person who was asking about issues of building stabilization could write another text clarifying which category perhaps that referred to, I'm just not sure what the question means. Can we use board-designated discretionary funds towards the match? Absolutely. Funds from the board and restricted funds are absolutely fine. Are vehicles eligible for equipment? No, sorry. Am I correct that we can only apply to one of the 3 funding categories? That's right. You can make 1 request to facilities per year. Someone's asking what the deadlines are this year. It hasn't been announced yet, but you will be getting an announcement about it soon. Just check your email. A question about when would grant awards be announced. They're likely to be announced late next fall. So all the grants going forward in facilities will be for January through December awards. So you would learn about it late this year, and then funding would be coming in at the beginning of 2017. Someone asked about the recording because their phone keeps dropping the audio. This is being recorded. It will be available as a link on our homepage for anyone who missed part or all of this. Is the SHPO review only for projects in the capital projects category, or does everyone need to submit that form? Yeah, it is for the, it's not for the equipment category, and also it obviously would only apply to you if your building is 50 years or older. So that needs to happen before the facilities application is submitted, or is each project reviewed upon funding. It can happen in tandem. This question is, can you be in multi-year, and when is the deadline? The deadline, as I said, will be announced very soon. Yes, you can absolutely be receiving multi-year funding from another NYSCA program. Facilities grants obviously are not multi-year, but not a problem at all if you are getting that from other NYSCA programs. Someone's asking, can we apply for design studies this year and then equipment next year, understanding that funding's not guaranteed either time? You conceivably could, although the timing may be a little bit tricky because, as I mentioned in the beginning, you have to have completed any NYSCA-funded facilities projects before you apply for another one. So that would mean if you were funded for design studies in 2017, you would be executing that project at the same time as preparing an application conceivably. So it may be, a really short order to have finished that project in the first couple months of the year and completed the final report. So it depends. Conceivably, yes, but it might be difficult. Could you discuss the technical support programs again? So the Preservation League of New York State offers a TAG, Technical Assistant Grant Opportunity, and that's for building conditions assessment and structural reports and things like that you may need, small projects that are executed by architects or engineers, and will help you, assess the state of affairs and hopefully help you get to a place where you may be ready to do a design or construction project. And if you go to their website, Preservation League of New York State, and then the TAG grants, you'll be able to see more information. It's an opportunity that's typically offered twice a year. It's a much simpler application than a NYSCA application with a shorter turnaround, so it's a great opportunity. Is there a limit to the number of applications per organization? For facilities, you can only do one application a year. Somebody is saying they will probably not submit their final report for the 2016 funding until fall. Does this mean we could not apply this year? If you mean 2016 funding for a facilities project, yes, that means you're not eligible this year. Okay, under the capital equipment, someone is asking if they can clarify non-depreciative audiovisual equipment versus eligible, fundable sound and lighting equipment. Right, so we get a lot of sound and lighting requests for theaters, like LED lights and sound systems and things like that. This is what we're distinguishing from, like, your office equipment to outfit like a conference room or distance learning, things like that, that's like multi-purpose. So that's the difference there. And if any of these answers are not getting in exactly what you're asking about, feel free to be in touch with me later and we can discuss the specifics of your proposal. Someone says they want to clarify that for capital equipment grants, the purchase of all the funded equipment would need to take place in calendar year 2017. That is correct. Are projected funds by New York City capital funds eligible? Yes, you can show New York City funds in your budget. That's not a problem. You can also be a CIG, Cultural Institution Group, and be eligible to come in for support here. What's the definition of a long-term lease? It's 6 unexpired years from the time of the application. Someone's saying we receive multi-year funding from VAP and EMF. Are we eligible? Yes, as long as you've received 3 consecutive years of support from at least one of those programs and you meet all the other criteria that we've been discussing, then absolutely. Someone else is asking about city funding. They're applying for city funding. Can we still apply to NYSCA for the same project? Yes, absolutely. Someone is saying, can you give more detail about a capital equipment application dealing with museum collection storage system? So we consider museum collection storage system essential to the production or presentation of an art form. Those are the things that the panel is going to be evaluating when they're looking at equipment. And I think probably a private conversation would be the best way to address this question, because I'm not sure on more of the specifics besides what was just stated. So please feel free to call or email me. Someone's again asking about New York State funding. If there's a piece that is funded through New York State but a piece that's not, can we apply for the piece that doesn't have New York State funding from NYSCA? Yes, you may. All right, someone's asking about a Red Sea Heritage grant that they received for some capital projects. It won't be completed until the fall of 2016. She's wondering if she may apply. I'm not sure if this grant was through NYSCA or another agency. It sounds like it was another agency, in which case, yes, you are eligible. Also, feel free to give me a call. Okay, this person is saying they work for a theater that has an apartment that houses actors during the summer season. Can they apply for grant help with that apartment building? Conceivably, if that program that where your actors are housed is related to the NYSCA-funded theater activity, then yes, but I would ask what else does that apartment complex do, what's it doing the rest of the year. It would be a lower priority if it's a mixed-use situation. If someone's just living there for the rest of the year and not supporting a NYSCA program from September through May or whatever, then that would be a lower priority. Okay, this person says they're considering several smaller projects. So they want a new kiln, storage space for children's art supplies. The storage space for children's art supplies doesn't sound like it would be eligible in equipment. The kiln conceivably would. Fire escape, not equipment in terms of what we fund. And gallery lighting. Would this be allowed appropriate? So this is an example of like a laundry list where the size of the budget for this project may indeed be under what, our max award could be. However, the risks of coming in with, I see a couple items there that would be eligible. The risk of mixing and matching like that, where they're not that connected, are that the panel may find one element to be strong and another weak. And so without a more focused approach, it may be difficult to rate the proposal. I would perhaps pick one of those things and come in for that. But ultimately, if you want to roll the dice and say, well, here's a couple pieces of equipment that we need and are eligible, then fine. Okay, the question is, can staff salaries associated with the project be used towards the in-kind match? It depends. So if it's, for example, in equipment, someone who would be installing the equipment, then yeah, that could be used towards the match. Maybe give me a call so I can hear a little bit more detail about that. Can you go over deadlines and the grant period? The deadline, again, will be announced soon, and the grant period for this opportunity is January through December of 2017. This person saying they receive operating expense funds from NYSCA. If they apply to facilities, does it endanger our future eligibility for operating expenses? No. An application to facilities has no bearing on any other applications that you're making to NYSCA. Someone says, can we use a grants period of July through June? No, you cannot. Going forward, it's only January through December. Somebody says, we are a public green thumb garden under NYC Parks. Are we eligible? Well, it doesn't sound like you have a facility if you are a park, so I don't think you would be eligible. Question about the TAG grants through the Preservation League. I'm not sure I understand this person's question. It sounds like they may have gotten a re-grant and they're wondering if they would be eligible for the facilities. If you've gotten a re-grant in the past, then you may indeed be. It doesn't really have bearing on your chances, but feel free to reach out to me if I didn't capture your question. Someone's asking, is the grant application as elaborate as a regional economic grant, or would it be just focused on the project? It's pretty focused on the project, so I encourage you to review the application and the support materials to see if it's something that, that you would be able to provide. Someone's asking about the guidelines related to organizations renting from religious organizations. We are renting a separate building and space owned by a church. Unfortunately, you're not eligible. Okay. Can you elaborate on in-kind to meet the one-to-one match? How is that quantified? So if you are working with an architect and you're applying to design studies, for example, and they would usually choose, they would usually charge someone $20,000 for the kind of project that they're doing with you, but because you're a nonprofit, they're only going to charge you $15,000, then you can include that $5,000 as an in-kind match. That's one example. If you have any other questions about it, feel free to ask me. Someone saying my organization's looking to purchase safety equipment like eye washes. No, that's not artistic equipment, so not eligible. Okay. And I'm taking, I'm sorry, everyone should be muted, so I'm sorry if someone is not, but I'm taking questions via the chat function, so please feel free to chat with me, but not converse via the phone connection. All right, so someone is asking why is the project period calendar year 2016, because their fiscal year 17 support with another program starts in July, which makes us ineligible for a facilities project being undertaken in the fall 2016. This is unfortunately correct. Anyone who is still receiving a July through June grant, it's because you were grandfathered in because you were on a multi-year term, as we have been making the switch, but we, in the last couple of years, have been putting all new grants on this January through December calendar. So we're still extending the courtesies to those who are on multi-year to continue with the term that they started with. But for facilities, you know, everyone's coming in new, so unfortunately that's just the deal. So if you're doing a project in the fall of 2016, it's not eligible.
You're ineligible.
So would the resurfacing of outdoor areas, paving a parking lot, and installing rainwater management be eligible for a grant? No, outdoor areas don't count as part of a facility. Now, someone, if I could ask everyone to be quiet, they should be on mute, but I apologize if that is not the case for everyone. Sometimes, you know, the program slips up a bit, but please just let me answer the questions that are coming in on chat. Someone's asking again about collection storage and wants more details about what types of collections. So any museum collection. If you're not a museum, this probably wouldn't be an appropriate piece of equipment for you, although I'd be happy to speak with you if you're not a museum. So whether you're an art museum, a science museum, a historic site, or anything like that. Would 6 theater seats be covered in capital equipment? Yes. Theatrical seating is something we do see in that category. Oh, I see. The person's coming back with a question about building stabilization and clarifying that they were wanted a little bit more information about that priority. So that kind of goes back to the health and safety priority. So if you are doing something that's going to shore up and make your structure more sustainable and safer, that's what we're getting at there. Is equipment like ticket scanners eligible for equipment? No, it is not. Can we use general operating money for match? Yes, you can, as long as it's not NYSCA general operating, but if it's, unrestricted funds, then no problem from your organization. The SHPO requirement, no, it's not for all applicants. It's only to those who are governed by a SHPO, 50 years or older on the registry or nominated. And someone's asking, am I correct that you cannot apply for new construction, only renovations of existing buildings, right, or expansions? But if you're building a new facility from scratch, this is not the place for you, unfortunately. Someone's saying, are capital equipment and or capital projects related to visual art studios a high priority competitive? Now, we do not have a pecking order among the arts disciplines, so everyone is welcome to come in. And the discipline of the art that's practiced in your facility, there's no rank there. All disciplines are welcome, so please feel free. Someone's saying, if most of the capital renovation will be performed in fiscal year 18 and 19, is it best to wait and apply in future years? Possibly, but if you are working with your architect now, then you might consider coming in to design studies for the design portion of your project. Someone wants to know how much funding is available in the facilities category and specifically in capital equipment. So we don't have a budget for each of the categories. We have one for the program as a whole. We don't know what our budget is this year, but last year it was at about $1 million. So that's kind of a jumping off point for this year, to give you a ballpark idea. By the way, you're welcome to look up past grantees if you want to go to the past NYSCA grants section, and then go to capital projects. We can choose, say, 2014, why not? And it will show you everyone who received a grant. You can click on those names to read the description of the project. Okay, for equipment, does the MWBE narrative refer to the specific equipment requested or the overall project? I think in this case you could discuss both, because if you're applying for something that's part of a larger project and you are going to be contracting with MWBE enterprises, that would be good to know. Can a lighting or sound equipment request be for a newly constructed building? Yes, as long as NYSCA-funded programs are happening there or will be in the request here. Someone's asking, I think, about our TAGS grants, the technical assistance grants, and yes, it's the Preservation League of New York State. If you go to their website, you can find information about that re-grant opportunity, that technical assistance opportunity. Someone's asking, does applying under facilities and 2 other eligible categories work against you? No, as I mentioned before, you can, if you are eligible to apply in 2 other NYSCA categories, you can still come into facilities. The requests are not going to be, counted against each other or anything. Someone's asking if they have a facilities grant for equipment for 2016. They haven't totally completed it yet. Does that mean they're ineligible to apply? If you haven't completed it and you haven't filled out your final report, then you cannot apply in this year. If you are able to complete it and fill out the final report before the application deadline, then yes, you could apply for this coming cycle. Someone's saying, can you please explain what design studies covers? So you may want to listen to the webinar from the beginning if you missed it. A link will be available, but just briefly, it covers the cost of working with an architect on the design phases of a renovation or expansion project. So that's concept, schematic, or design development. Someone's asking, could AV and related computer equipment be an allowable capital project for archives? I think the answer is it depends. You know, if you are in order, I would say give me a call in this case, and let's talk about it. You know, as I mentioned before, computers sometimes have to work with artistic equipment, and if those computers are dedicated to that purpose, then, you know, they are allowable, and we have supported things like that. But there are other cases where applicants have come in and AV equipment has been seen as less of a priority for one reason or another. Someone's asking, is it suggested that we meet with a NYSCA representative to discuss the scope and details of our capital renovation? Unfortunately, the NYSCA representatives don't have the capacity to meet with all of our applicants, but we do welcome phone calls and emails if you have any questions or if you want to be sure that your project is seems like it might be eligible. You know, we can certainly have a conversation. In the end, you know, we can give you guidance on what you would present us in that phone call or email. In the end, is the panel that makes those evaluations and sees the full breadth of everything that you are submitting. Someone's saying, is depreciable audiovisual equipment like cameras and audio recorders possible if we can make a case that it's directly linked to our programming? Probably not. It may be linked to your programming, but yeah, I don't think we've ever funded something like that, so I'm not sure. We could fund things like projectors because that's how, you know, you present the art form, but this doesn't sound eligible to me. Are conference phone systems fundable? No, they are not. Someone's asking if two competitive bids are obtained for a special equipment request and they are not provided by MWBE contractors, how do you recommend we comply with the MWBE requirement? Can it be on the full construction project? We don't require that you contract with an MWBE enterprise. We do ask that you make the effort and you describe those efforts, but we understand that if you are buying a type of specialty equipment, there may not be an MWBE vendor that would match what you need, and so that's all that you need to describe in the facilities application. However, if you are contracting with someone as part of the larger project, again, it's great to know that. Someone said, can you repeat the typical size of a capital grant from NYSCA? Our max grant is $49,500. Our minimum is $5,000. There needs to be a one-to-one match, so we will fund no more than 50% of the project's eligible costs. Can you clarify what's unfundable unless you own the property in regards to exterior or facade? So that means that if you're doing something to the outside of your building, like the roof, you have to own it. If it has to do with flooring or functionality of exterior, such as paving, lobby, patio, and we are only a long-term lease, is that eligible? Well, if it's the lobby, that's interior, but you would want to make the case that it's for your organization and not a multi-purpose lobby. Someone else is asking about the religious organizations thing. I think this is the question I got before. Now this is, are we still ineligible to apply for equipment that can be taken with us to a new location? Yeah, if you are renting from a religious institution, you are not eligible to apply in any of the categories, and that includes equipment, even though the equipment could be conceivably taken somewhere else, like if it's theatrical lighting or something. Someone says, would a planetarium where we produce our own laser light shows and other programs be eligible for either a design studies or a capital equipment grant? If that planetarium is receiving funding from NYSCA, I would assume in the museum program, then yes. Okay, another applicant is asking if an arts organization does not have a physical facility but does have production equipment, could the organization still be eligible for facilities funding? No, unfortunately, the requirement across the board in this program is that you have ownership or a long-term lease. You cannot apply in two categories. Someone's asking about solar. I think this would be eligible in the capital projects if you are interested in solar technology. Let's talk about that. Give me a call. Would a handicap ramp be eligible? Perhaps if it's part of a larger capital project and you would need the support materials, look at the support materials for that category, see if you would need all the drawings and everything else to make this project happen, then conceivably, perhaps. Do stage props and costumes qualify? I think in the equipment, no, those are not eligible. Someone's asking, between a project that involves refurbishment of an exterior and a project that adds additional artist workspace to a facility, which would NYSCA find more compelling and be more likely to fund? So this is one of those questions, a little bit like looking into a crystal ball, but I would take a look at the priorities that we've discussed, the 6 priorities, and see which of those 2 projects addresses more of those priorities. Does non-fixed seating qualify? If it's office, stackable chairs, that type of thing, then no. Okay, somebody else is saying on the religious thing, a building owned and operating as home to dozens of nonprofits, is it ineligible if the building owner is the corporate investment arm of a religious institution? I'm sorry, yes, it is ineligible still. Someone's saying they have a new space that would have to be gutted to house their organization to move into it. Is that considered renovation or new construction? That is renovation. An organization does not own a facility but uses borrowed space. Can we still apply for equipment? No, unfortunately. For a design study grant, do you need to own the building? You need to own it or have a long-term lease of at least 6 unexpired years from the time of the application. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my questions. We're almost at an hour, so that's kind of perfect timing. Thank you all for tuning in. As I said, I am available to answer any remaining questions by email or phone. And thanks, everyone. Have a great day.